Okay, in this series of tutorials, we're going to look at how to build a basic website using external CSS. So the first thing I've done here is to create a www folder. This is going to be the folder where all my web assets go. Inside this folder, we have two more folders, one called images, which is obviously going to have all of the images from my website, and one called scripts, which will have all of the the HTML files and the CSS files. At the moment, I've just saved some images from Google Images for examples. So we have a background image. I have 6 images that are going to go into a table, and I have one social media icon which we'll put on the bottom of the web page. The software that I'm going to be using to create my website is an IDE called Brackets. Brackets is a free download from online. I like it because it color codes the HTML for you so you can sort of see where errors are. And it also allows you to view two coding documents side by side. So we can have our index HTML file on this side and our style sheet on the other side. So the first thing I'm going to do is to create a new file here on the left. I can get rid of the old file, and I'm going to save this as index.html, and I'm going to save it to that scripts folder that I have created on my desktop. The first page of our website is always called index.html. Save. On the right hand side, we're going to create a new document, and this one I'm also going to save into my scripts folder. And I'm going to call it styles.css. Just making very careful that it's saved in the same folder as where you save that index.html file so that they can talk to each other. Okay, now that I've done that, I'm going to create the structure of my web page by putting in the HTML skeleton. So we start with our 7 skeleton tags, which allow the browser to know what kind of code it is reading. We then start our HTML document. We add a head tag, which allows us to place any metadata for our website. And we place a body tag, which holds all of the content for our website. So as we type our tags, anything inside another tag, we tab across one space. So because our head section is inside our HTML tag, we tab across once. Our body is also inside our HTML tag, so we've tabbed across once. Inside my head tag, I'm going to add a title tag. Because it's inside the head, I tab across again. This is going to be the title of my website. Oops, my first website. This is the main structure of our website at the moment. I'm going to choose File, Save. I'm going to choose this option over here, which is a live preview. What that's going to do is open up my web page in my default browser, which for me at the moment is Google Chrome, but it could be any web browser that you have. And put it over this side of the screen. So as we can see, there's no body of our website yet because there's nothing between our body tags. We can see that our title has appeared at the top of the website. So at the moment, we can put that off to the side. So as we're working on our HTML and CSS, we're seeing the web page. The next thing we want to do is link our HTML document to our cascading style sheet. And we also do that in our head section using the link tag. Now the relationship of the page that we're linking to this is a style sheet. And its reference, or its is style.css. Now you can see as I'm typing that brackets defaults to finding things that are available for me. So it already recognized that style CSS was a coding document available to me because it's saved in the same folder as my index.html file. Right, so now that that's linked, we're not going to actually see any changes happening, but we can save it. And as we move through, any of the styles that we type over here, we should see being applied to our relevant HTML. Just to double check that that's working, we're going to start by adding a background to our body tag. So the way that CSS works is that we use one of our HTML selectors, so one of these tags that are blue, that we want to apply a style to. So I would like to apply a style to my body. I use my curly brackets to hold any of the properties and values that I'm applying to that particular selector. So the property that I would like to change is the background image. And the URL to that background image is saved inside our images folder. So what I do is I say //images/ and you can see all of the images I have saved in that folder appearing, and I would like to go with background. Now the reason that I do this .. is about folder structure. So if we can see here, I have my script saved here in my scripts folder. The .. means you won't find it in this folder. You'll find it in its parent folder, which is www. So this .. takes you out of the scripts folder into the parents folder. It then goes into my folder called images, and then it looks through my images till it finds a file called background.svg. So it's very important that this URL is relevant to where you have your assets saved. Okay, so now if we go File, Save, and come back to the internet, we should see the background to our body update, which we haven't. So as I can see here, I've actually called my CSS document styles.css, whereas here in my href, I've actually only called it style.css. So when I add my S and save all, my web page has updated. Now it's important to note here that the image that I've chosen for my background is actually an image that tessellates quite well, which means the pattern repeats itself almost seamlessly. You can see here actually that it doesn't match up very well at all. So if we use sort of a smaller image and you had a seam like this, it can look really busy. Or if you want to avoid those seams, then you should probably find a better image than the one that I have here, so that it actually meets up properly and the pattern aligns with each other and you can't see that the image is repeating. Okay. All right, so we know now that our CSS is linked to our HTML document, and we have the core skeleton of our HTML document typed, so we can start to actually put some content onto our website, and all of the content of our website happens inside these body tags. So as I said earlier, everything that happens inside a set of tags is tabbed in. So everything inside the body will be tabbed in one more space, so it'll be in line with title and link. If I then have content nested inside other tags, I will continue to indent those. The reason that we do this is so that our opening tag is always in line with our closing tag when we have a lot of things nested. This just makes it a lot easier for readability, and it makes it really easy to find any errors. Okay, so I'm going to try and move quite quickly through this, but what we're going to do is set up a series of what's called divisions. They're essentially invisible boxes that will help us to structure the content of our website. So the way that we insert a division is to put the key selector div, and we're going to give each one an ID so that we can add CSS to each one individually, not to all of them at once. The first one is going to be called container. Oops, that should finish image there, and the content inside the container div is going to be this is the container. And then close my division. So you can see when I go File, Save, nothing actually really changes here, but you can see my sentence has appeared. And essentially that is inside an invisible box that's spreading from one side of the page to the other. Okay, now before my division closes, I actually want to place some more divisions. So as we do when something is nested, we tab in. This time I'm going to say div ID header. Okay, so I have my first division called container. Inside that division, we have a division called header, which is going to be the top of our document. I have a division called content L, which is going to be a panel on the left-hand side of the screen. A division called content R, which will be a panel on the right-hand side of the screen. And a division called footer, which will run all the way across the bottom of the page. I then close my container div. So it's important that all 4 divisions are inside that container div. We press save. At this stage, we can see that we have 4 divisions, but we can't see anything else. This is where our CSS comes in. So coming over to our CSS document, we're going to set these divisions up, placing them across the screen, and we're going to also add background colors to them just so that we can see them at this point. So we'll start with the container. The selector that we want to address is the div selector, but because we have so many different divs, instead of addressing the selector, we select the div ID name. So because it's a name and not a selector, we start it with a hashtag. And now we can add our properties and our value. So the property that I would first like to do for my container is say that I would like the width of my container to be 80% of the page. I would like the background color of my container to be a particular color. So we can see here that we're given some colors. We can use worded colors, so I could choose the word aqua, or I can use RGB or hexadecimal values here. A website that I find really useful is w3schools.com. So what I can do is from the home page, I can choose Learn Colors, and I'm going to come down to hex, color hex. What this actually does is gives us a hex calculator. So I can either adjust my red, green and blue values from something in Photoshop, or I can just drag them around until I find a color that I actually like. Now obviously if you're using branding colors, you could use the RGB or hexadecimal values. You could use Photoshop to get these values. It's really up to you, but for today I'm just going to choose a color that I like the look of. I might go with this one here, and we can see I get this hexadecimal value. I'm going to copy that value, paste it here. You can see now that it's changed the background of my container division to that particular color. I know that it's my container division because all of my other divisions are inside of it, because my container there, it wraps around them. Now you can see at the moment that I've made this 80% of the page, so no matter how big or small I make the page, that division will stretch or shrink to be 80%. I would also like it to be centered though, so I'm going to add another piece of CSS here that says margin auto. Now that'll make sure that the space on either side of the margins will always be the same, effectively centering that division. So now I can go along and add CSS to the rest of my divisions to place them where I would like to place them. So my header, I would like to run the whole way across the top of my page. So hashtag header, its width will be 100%. Now this is not going to go from the very edge of the page to the other edge of the page. It's 100% of whatever it's inside of. So my container is 80% of the entire HTML document. My header is now 100% of that 80%. So it's going to stretch all the way across this division. So we can see it for now. I'm going to add a background color. And I'm just going to make it white. And we can see that that has now become white. Our content left. Now I would like the left and right to sit side by side, so the width of those is going to be 50% of the overall division. I would like it to float to the left-hand side of the page and have a background color of green for now, just so that we can see it. You can see that it's moved to the left, it's halfway. Now our right division has slotted up there at this point, but only by default. I do need to make sure that I place it there properly using CSS. So I'm also going to add some CSS to my content right. It has a width of 50%. It's going to float to the right. And the background color for this one, let's go with Azure, whatever that is. And we can see that that's worked in there. The final division that we need to address is the footer division. So I want it to run 100% of the page, and I want to make sure that it's always on the bottom. So what we're going to do is address it with hashtag footer with 100%. And this time we're going to say clear, making sure we put all of the right syntax in. So clear both. This way it's always going to remain at the very bottom of anything that's above it. And I'll go with aquamarine so that we can see it. So now that we can actually see these divisions and how they're working, I don't actually need any content in my container division. I only really need the content inside my header, left and right. The container division is just what essentially contains them all in place. So I'm going to come back to my HTML and I'm just going to remove that sentence that I've put in the container so that I just have a division holding 4 more divisions. So I have a header running all the way across the page, I have a left division, a right division, and the footer. So what I would probably do if I was making this website professionally was to take some colour from this background, choose a colour scheme that was complementary, and adjust all of these so that they're ready to go, so they have the right colours. In the next tutorial, we will add some content to the left and right. After that, we will create a menu bar for the header, and we'll put some icons in the footer.